Details of tropical depression 2. So you may have remembered Arthur was our last system. This is kind of like the reverse of Arthur. If you remember, Arthur kind of started at us and then tracked along the Texas coast and went toward Houston. This one is starting near Florida and then tracking the opposite direction along the Texas coast toward Houston. So that's why it's kind of like Arthur in reverse. But this is a more typical pattern of tropical systems. We do have high pressure. That is what wound up being the steering winds. I know yesterday or last week rather, I mentioned that there's a good chance that the storm may try to go north closer to that low pressure trough. Well, turns out the high pressure is going to be stronger. The trough isn't going to dig deep enough, early enough to tap into this system or make it want to go that direction. So that's why we've got forecast cones that are bringing our tropical depression 2 toward the Texas coast. So a couple of important times to note is Wednesday. Wednesday is going to be a big one. Wednesday at 1 p.m., this system is starting to move toward Louisiana, toward the mouth of the Mississippi River, with some potential landfalling impacts there near New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain, all of those locations. So good news about that for us is it's going to interact with land, keeping it weaker. We've also got a decent amount of wind shear that the system's going to interact with and likely keep it weaker. So you see it transitioning back to a tropical depression as it moves toward Houston. And then once it gets into Texas, it doesn't look like there'll be much. We'll be lucky to see a low. But when it comes to our rainfall forecast, we'll see if the data loads. Hopefully it does before we go on. Okay, we've got the streets in. Now we've got the rain in. We'll see if the cone pops in. But what I want to show you is the bulk of the rain, it looks like, with the forecast staying there into the Gulf. Meanwhile, through Sunday, we could see a little bit of rain on the Texas coast, even from Houston down south, but it doesn't look like a lot of rain. However, this is going to be enough rain. There's the cone. So you'll see Tuesday is a day where it's moving across the Florida Panhandle and then toward Alabama. Wednesday is the day that Louisiana sees some of the bigger impacts, and then it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday that we could see some impacts here in Texas. But as I've been mentioning, they look pretty minimal at this point in time. When it comes to the flooding, you'll see it along the southeastern states, the Gulf Coast. It looks like the highest risk of flooding there south of New Orleans into Louisiana. That's going to be Wednesday and Thursday. Now, Houston down toward Victoria, we do have a marginal risk of flooding on Thursday. And then Houston towards San Antonio, we have a marginal risk of flooding. Corpus Christi, not in any of those flooding risks at this point in time. So let's talk wind shear. As this system tracks toward the west, this is the day, Wednesday's the day we're going to see the most wind shear. You'll see some blues picking up, deep blues. That's going to be more wind shear trying to tear the system apart. We saw this on the vorticity I showed you earlier, the storm energy. So by Wednesday, we should really know if the shear is pulling the system apart and if it's going to weaken like we expect it to. Then still interacting with shear. Now, if this could move faster, per se, it could interact with an area of less shear on the Texas Gulf Coast, but it doesn't look like it's going to do that. This is a pretty slow-moving system. There's not a lot of strong steering winds in the atmosphere, so I think it stays pretty weak. Now, remember, wind shear, tropical systems, they want to stay stacked. Wind shear makes them unstacked. So it does look like Tuesday's our best chance of some tropical storm strength winds there at the buoy south of Mississippi, but otherwise, the only major impact, and it's not major, that was the wrong word to use, the only impact we're really going to see is some bigger wave action possible Thursday, so we could have a rip current risk. You can see the storm surge forecast 2 to 4 feet targeting that point of Louisiana and Mississippi, but for us, our Saharan dust is starting to clear out a little bit. We have some blue sky, and we are very hot. I can't emphasize that enough. I showed you the highs earlier. We'll be in the upper 90s tomorrow afternoon, and in your 7-day forecast, we've got those high temperatures possibly reaching 100 for Corpus Christi. We did it in the brush country already. We could do it again by Wednesday for Corpus Christi. We'll talk more about all of the heat coming up at 6. For now, we've got more news right after.